of 1 million. I am so excited to have you all here. Today we're talking to the beautiful Samantha.
Hi.
And you all know that in these conversations, we look to inspire you. And just to give you a quick update of how this all started. So back in the day, we had a goal to help 1,000 people learn how to make $1,000 in a day from trading stocks, because that would allow us to make $1 million a day trading stocks. And we crushed that goal last year, beginning of the year, we crushed it. And now we've gotten many more people making even more than that. But the thing was, many people couldn't even understand what $1 million looked like. They couldn't fathom what $1 million of anything was. So we started bringing in these speakers that had reached $1 million of something, whether that was $1 million or 1 million podcast views or 1 million followers. Like, what is the journey to get to $1 million? So now it's continued. People love to hear the stories, and I'm just so glad to see you in my chair today, because you've reached $1 million in several different things, and I'm just excited to have you here. So thank you for coming here, Samantha.
Thanks for having me, Terry. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, how about first, and you can even look into this camera here, tell the people who you are.
I am Sam Ettus, and today I'm Terry's guest.
True. And a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, so I am the founder and CEO of Park Place Payments, which is a payment processing company with a new kind of sales force. And I also am a very big fan of financial independence for everyone. So one of my missions in life is to spread wealth in a more egalitarian way. So in the case of my company, that means creating financial independence for populations of people that might not have had access to that kind of an opportunity. So we offer a recurring revenue opportunity to a lot of people that wouldn't have had access to something other than an hourly position, or maybe they'd left the workforce and wanted to get back in and found no opportunities. So financial independence has always been a big theme in all the work I do. And I've always been passionate about helping women achieve their goals and reaching their professional and personal potential.
Yes.
Yeah.
So back in the day when I was in college, I actually started doing Mary Kay.
Oh, wow.
And, yep.
I bet you were so good at that.
You know, it taught me a lot about like how to ask the right questions and like how to sell and how to do but one of their missions too was to make sure that like women had another way to make money. And I wonder, like, when you were talking, that kind of same theme came through. What gave you your passion for making sure that everyone had another way?
Yeah. So growing up, I grew up in New York City in an apartment building with 43 floors. And one day my mother and I got off the elevator, and she pointed out a woman that lived in the building who I've known my whole life. I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. And she said, you know, Mrs. Riles hates her husband, but she has no money of her own, so she can never leave him. Never be like Mrs. Riles. And obviously it's a pretty crass way to give an 8-year-old a message.
Don't be like that.
But
don't do that.
But it stuck with me, and I think ever since it was always sort of hammered into me that financial independence was super important. It was kind of the opposite of what I see a lot, which is like the princess mentality of, you know, marry a prince who will support you. That was the opposite of how I was raised. And so it never occurred to me that I would be in a financially vulnerable position or get myself into a relationship where I was dependent on someone. And so that's always been a theme for me, not only for my own life, but also to help other women achieve that as well. Yeah.
Did you ever find yourself in a position like that at all?
No.
Or like see other women that had been in situations like that?
Well, I've worked with thousands of women, and I can say that the ones who become financially dependent on a relationship get into a situation where it's really hard to have agency, power over your own life when you don't earn money. You know, it's funny, there was recently a study that talked about how once you earn enough to get past the poverty line, there's really no way money makes you happy. So, you know, whether you're off the charts wealthy or whether you're comfortable, there's no difference in happiness levels. But what that was really missing, that study, was whether it's money you earn yourself. So I have a theory that if you were not earning the money, if you inherited the money, or it's your spouse earned the money, it still doesn't feel good to you. People feel better when they earn their own money.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And like, so I've been working with a lot of women too in our trade and travel program. About 63% are women, and they're learning how to trade so that they can make their own money or make their money work for them. And I agree with you. When you're able to make your own money, there's a sense of confidence and a sense of self-value,
Yes.
but also just independence that comes along with that.
Absolutely, and it's rewarding, and then you're not making decisions based on the wrong things, right? You don't want to stay in a marriage or choose a partner because of their financial situation. That doesn't necessarily lead to good outcomes,
Now, why do women make, I'm going to make an assumption here, but I bet you might agree.
Okay.
Why do we make the best entrepreneurs?
It's funny. I don't necessarily know if women make the best entrepreneurs or if people with an awesome work ethic make the best entrepreneurs. I think there's a thread among my entrepreneurial friends, and I see it. We just met this morning, but I've seen it in you too. You have this passion and this hustler mentality. No task is beneath you, and nothing is beyond you, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it takes. It is that thing that keeps you working all the time to chase your dreams. And it's funny because we were talking earlier about entrepreneurship and investors, and to me the number one thing is who is leading that company. Is that someone who is an optimist? Do they sort of believe beyond what's rational that they will be successful? I think that's really, really important. You have to almost be crazy in your pursuit of your dream.
And with that, I know that you have some tips as well about work-life balance, but so how do you have that crazy pursuit but then also have a balanced life?
Well, see, I don't see them as mutually exclusive. I think that the most fulfilled people are those that allow themselves to have a fulfilling career and a fulfilling personal life. And I think for so long the messages that women have received are, oh, you can't do it all and it's so hard. And if you even just Google the term working mom, it's like a woman with a laptop and a baby and a business suit, and it looks awful. Like no one wants that. And that doesn't really exist, right? Anyone who's ever tried to have a conference call with a child in the room or a barking dog knows it's just not possible, right? So I think instead we just need to have healthier frameworks for what we expect of ourselves and how we think about work and life. So I was really just sort of, I guess, daunted by how many negative frameworks there were. There was juggling, which anyone who's ever tried to juggle, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
There's a scale, right? Work-life balance is based on this scale, and anyone who has a thriving business knows that you're never going to spend equal time at home and at work and be successful. So, and we talk about having it all, and nobody you can think of has it all, right? So why are there's no man who's like, I'm just trying to have it all. So why are women doing that? It's silly. So instead I came up with this framework that was kind of a more optimistic, achievable framework, which is called the pie. And the idea...
Tell me about it. I want to know.
Okay, so Terry, the idea is that you have 7 slices of your life, okay? And those slices are your family, your health, your relationship or your quest to find one, your friends, your community, your hobbies, and your career.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that you're spending equal time in all of those slices. It just means that you have to be aware that for a fulfilling life, you need to be playing in all of those. So just put them on your pie. Even if they're a sliver today, it means they'll exist, and you make specific goals for each one. So like we were just talking about how you moved to a new place, and it's now your new job is to find friends in that new place, right? So that's on your slice. So maybe your goal will be to start a book club in your new community, right? And then that is a goal for that slice of your life. So if it's, if someone's unhappy in their career, it's networking could be one of their goals in their slice. I'm going to meet 3 new people a week in this career. I'm going to learn a new trade. If hobbies haven't existed for a while, maybe what made you happy as a kid? It was playing guitar. So now you're going to take a guitar lesson once a month. It doesn't have to be all in where you're suddenly doing something 10 hours a week. It's just the idea that you're giving yourself permission to play in all of these different areas.
Do you make a goal in each part of the pie pie?
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes. So if you're single and you want to meet someone, it's I'm going to go on one online date a week, or I'm going to put together a dating profile. The idea is that if you set a goal for each one, it's not about time. It's not about basing it on how much time you spend in each slice, because you're probably pretty rational about how much time you're spending in each slice. You probably couldn't spend any less time at work and be successful, or any less time on your relationship, or any less time with your family and still have a good setup. So instead, it's about making goals for each slice that are very achievable goals. It's not, I want to be in a relationship next year. That's not a goal. That's like, okay, the person's going to show up on your windshield on the way to work.
That's a prayer.
That's a
Lord,
prayer.
please.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's about making specific goals. And the other thing that is not in the pie is guilt.
Okay.
So many women that I work with are riddled with guilt, whether it's not spending enough time in a relationship, or not spending enough time with their kids, or guilty about working, or guilty about not working, whatever it is. Guilt is just an extraneous ingredient in your pie, and there's truly no room for it.
How do you get rid of it, though? Because I could see someone feeling like, well, I'm not giving enough time to this portion, and feeling weird about that. Like, how do they get over the guilt?
Sure. My trick for getting over guilt is being present wherever you are. So if I'm sitting here with you and I'm thinking, oh gosh, I really should be at home, or I should be helping this friend, I'm not really present with you, right? And if I'm home and I'm like, oh, I should have been on that conference call, or you're thinking of something you should have been doing for work, then you're not present with the people at home. But if I know I'm giving you 100% right now, and then when I go home and giving the people at home 100%, that eliminates a lot of the guilt, because I'm present wherever I am.
That's good.
So being present really helps you eliminate the guilt, because you're giving it your best shot wherever you are.
Do you add time stamps to that? Like, I'm going to be present for an hour, or you just kind of say, I'm going to be present?
I mean, for me, I'm a mom of 3, so when I'm with my kids, I'm not on my phone. I try really hard to just be listening to them and in touch with them. I think that listening to someone and making them feel seen is better than like 11 distracted hours, right?
Yes.
Like, you're better off giving 1 hour of undivided attention. That's what we all want at the end of the day. We all want to feel seen and heard. And so giving that to someone is really important.
I totally agree. I actually sent a text message just this morning that said, like, to a friend that said, like, I hope that you're able to be present today, because like, I really enjoy when you're here. But presence is not just like being there. It's like also like, take your smartwatch off, so you're not like looking at the watch every couple minutes, or
so true.
Put the phone down. Like,
well, think about like the conversation you have at dinner. If someone has their phone on the table, it almost makes you anxious, because you think, okay, we could be interrupted at any moment.
Yes.
Right? And so just the presence of a phone changes a conversation. So, in my family, we have a rule with my kids, like, no one's allowed to bring their phone to the table, and we're all just present during the meal. And I think having those sort of small things for yourself really helps. Yeah.
That does. Do you mind sharing? I'm going to ask a kind of personal question.
Sure.
And I did hear that you're like the best mom. Like, you're so amazing
sweet.
as a parent.
I try my best. I make mistakes every day, but I keep trying.
Yes. What are some of the personal goals that you have right now in your different areas on your pie?
Oh my gosh, no one's ever asked me that before, and which is shocking. So I would say in my career, I am focused on creating a $1 billion company, and that would be the loftier goal. And then the more micro goal is we're in the middle of raising our Series A round of capital, and just finishing the round and getting that done is my more immediate goal.
I'm claiming it for you already anyway, too. Like, just so you got that goal.
Okay, good. We're done. Yes. And then in terms of my family life, we already have dinner together every night, which is like a really big thing to me. So I feel like my goals in that area are just to continue to be present for my kids and make them feel good about themselves. And that's, actually that's doing what I told you not to do, which is like, that's a lofty goal. It should be a micro goal. So I have a son who's 11. I have a tradition in our family where when you're 10 years old, I take you on a trip to the country of your choice. Okay, now this is a very exciting dream trip. okay? My son, because it's been during COVID, we've never gotten to go on our trip.
Okay.
Now he's at the age where he's like, forget it, we don't need to go on a trip. So now my job is to convince him to go on the trip and actually make time for it in my schedule as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what country he would want to go to?
Well, this is part of our issue, Terry, is he wants to go to Japan, which is where I took my other daughter. And when we went to Japan, I never adjusted to the time difference. So I would wake up every night at midnight. We'd go to sleep at 6. I'd wake up at midnight and sit there staring at her, waiting for her to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm like, I can't do it again.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm hoping he'll choose another country. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Tokyo's so nice. Did y'all go to Tokyo or what part of Japan?
We went to Tokyo and Kyoto. Yeah, it was
yes.
awesome. Yeah.
One of the things I remember from Tokyo was just riding on the subway. This is the smallest memory, but it sticks in my mind. And how fashionably everybody was dressed on the subway.
Yes,
like,
I know. And they're all so put together. And they all the women, one thing I noticed, they all had very sensible shoes, what I would call. They were all like 1.5-inch heels. And I was so fascinated by that. No one had high heels and no one had flats. They were all 1.5-inch heels.
I wonder if it's because they were like, they have to get places.
They're on the
like
go.
They're on the go.
They were sensible. Yeah, they're practical.
Any other things on your personal
on my
pie?
personal, yeah. I would say just at this point, my pie is not as sort of balanced as it normally is because I'm an entrepreneur and because I have 3 kids. Right now, like between momming and working, that's the bulk of my pie. I've been trying to be a lot better with health appointments. So that's one thing that is on my goal list, is to make checkup appointments on time, which I hadn't been doing. Yeah.
And you know what? I feel like you're right. As entrepreneurs, there are going to be times where your pie is skewed.
Yeah.
And it's like, in this season, I'm going full force. I'm giving it my all, and I'm okay with that. Have you ever found that there were people in your life that they had like other ideas of what your pie should look like, and so now you're kind of like, no, like in this season I'm okay with going full force? Or maybe that's just me.
No, absolutely. I think as entrepreneurs, you end up, I'm sure that you feel this way, you end up, your friendships are the ones that really, your friends have to understand your lifestyle, right? It's a lot easier to be friends with someone who has a 9-to-5 job, who's always available to talk on the phone. You know, when you're traveling, when you're an entrepreneur and you have an unpredictable schedule, it's much harder to have that daily conversation. You might not be available for it. So you tend to gravitate towards the friends who understand that lifestyle. And I would say that a lot of my closest friends are not like in my neighborhood necessarily. They're people that understand my lifestyle because they have their own busy lives wherever they live. Yeah.
How did you build community with other entrepreneurs, or build community with people that feel like get it?
Yeah. It's so funny because I'm often asked, like, how do you build community with friends where you live? It's harder to build that community of work people that you need, which are like your friends. My friend Tori Johnson calls them BBFs, business best friends. Because you need them. You need to talk to them on the phone, and you need to run something by them, and it really helps. One thing that's helped me is there's a networking group I'm part of called The List, which is in New York, and most people are in New York, and it's like a media and technology group. So I've met a lot of great women that way who are all pursuing their own goals and dreams. I met my podcast co-host that way, Amy Nelson, who started The Riveter, and so she and I... so
they opened up in Dallas. I remember going to their premiere.
Exactly. Yeah. So she and I host a podcast called What's Her Story with Sam and Amy, where we interview remarkable women each week. And I've met a lot of awesome women that way. I mean, that's definitely expanded my network. And I think I'm a big believer in the cold call. So I am always cold contacting people I want to meet or want to know. And I just introduce myself and see if they can get together, whether now it's for a Zoom, it used to be for coffee or whatever when I was going to be in that city. But when I go to a city for work, I always try to make sure I'm also meeting people in that city. So for example, if I'm going to Chicago for a conference, I'll sort of look at who the high profile women are in that city and try to connect with them for a meal or drinks when I'm there.
Yeah, that's super smart.
Yeah.
Don't just let the opportunity go by. Take advantage of every moment, even if it's just traveling to a new city. That's really smart.
And I will say that, like, social media also makes it easier to do that, right? It's easy to give someone social media love. You press like or you comment on their post, and you can stay in touch a lot more easily that way. It doesn't substitute for in-person contact, but it definitely makes a difference. Yeah.
I actually wanted to ask you about your podcast.
Sure.
So how did you get started with the podcast, and then what has your favorite guest been?
I have a new favorite guest every week, I have to say. So this week my favorite guest was probably my most recent favorite guest was Liz Lang, who she pioneered the maternity wear category. And it was kind of a selfish reason she's my favorite guest. One is she's super positive, like I am. She says she has Prozac running through her veins. Like I just love her energy. And then the second thing is that years ago, she doesn't even know this, but she gave me my personal style, which was, she's like, here's an easy style. Just wear a shift dress in a bright color, one color, and heels. And that's like your go-to style for speaking engagements, for TV appearances. So I made that my style, but then COVID hit, and I'm like, I don't want to wear heels in some cold dress where I'm going to be freezing and shaking, shivering while I'm giving a speech. So on the podcast, I said to her, okay, I need a new style. And she goes, oh my gosh, I don't wear that anymore. She's like, now I'm all about the monochrome tracksuit and ballet flats. So the day that aired, that night, I went online and bought a couple of monochrome sweatsuits and ballet flats. And then the other day, I wore like this little, on Saturday, a little black velour sweatsuit and pink ballet flats. And my 16-year-old looked at me and she goes, what's going on? I'm like, this is my new style. And she goes, okay, your new style makes me feel like I'm 32 years old. She's 16. She's like, it not only makes you look old, it makes me feel old. So can you wait until like you get to a nursing home for that style? So it's really funny. I know. So anyway, so that was a fun episode. And then we interviewed Gloria Steinem, who, obviously is so incredible, the work she's done. And she was just as wonderful to interview as I would have imagined. And she shared with us a lot of things that she'd never shared anywhere else. And I think my goal of every interview is for someone to share something they've never said before. And that's hard to do when you're working with high profile people, So, we've interviewed Soledad O'Brien, and we just interviewed Huma Abedin, she was Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, and she was married to Anthony Weiner.
Yes.
And we got to ask her really hard questions, and she was extraordinary. And I think, I fall in love with every guest. As I was telling you, I read all of their books like cover to cover, even if it means I have to stay up all night. And I kind of fall in love with all of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
Well, and being that you have interviewed some really great people, I'd love advice even for me. Like, how do you make sure that you ask the right questions?
Well, I think it's like what you're doing now. When someone sits there ahead of time sending you all the questions, and they have a note card, and it doesn't feel natural, right? This is more of a conversation, and I think the best interviews are conversations where someone says something that sparks your interest, and you're like, yeah, tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Most interviewers don't do that, but there's a few interviewers who do that, and I try to learn from them and what they do. Yeah.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I like being able to just like hear what's happening and go deeper, but I feel like some people aren't able to really focus.
That's right.
They're not able to hear people and like listen well.
Well, what you just said is true, right? Most people are not good listeners, and it's hard to be a good conversationalist if you're a good talker but not a good listener. And I think the key to being a good interviewer is to listen well. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great.
You already do that well.
Thank you, Boo. No. Well, and I wanted to get to your company, because I want to know, like, how did you get interested in payments? How did you get interested in helping people to build wealth through payments? Like,
I mean, and the funny thing, Terry, is I'm not that interested in payments. I'm interested in people's financial independence.
Okay.
And I'm also interested in small business owners. So, and so here's how they converge. So I was on a book tour for my last book 5-6 years ago. It was called The Pie Life, what we just talked about. And on that book tour, I spoke everywhere from Target to Twitter, every company you could imagine, and a lot of women's conferences. And when I was at the women's conferences, there was one group of women I was unable to help. And that was the women who had left the workforce, wanted to get back in, and found no opportunities. And a lot of them started selling for multi-level marketing companies where they were asked to pay for inventory, whether it's makeup or skincare or essential oils or whatever, vitamins. And I sort of dug into it, and I was like, what's going on here? And 98% of them were losing money. They weren't even breaking even. And they're basically preying on women. And I thought, why is this happening? And I was really disturbed by that. And I thought, okay, there has to be a better way. And then about 12 years ago, I'd had a front row seat to the payment processing industry, which is this industry most people don't know about. But any business, whether you're a restaurant or a hotel or a yoga studio or a dry cleaners, if you accept credit cards, you have to have a middleman between American Express, MasterCard, Visa, and the business. And the middleman was 30,000 white men who operate a lot like used car salesmen. So I'd been, I was, at this conference, and it was the top guys, and they were all guys, in the payments industry. And I said to them, where are the women? Where are the people of color? And they laughed at me.
What?
And I was a college athlete. And once they did that, I was like, I'm going to come back and crush these guys.
Yes.
So when I met all these women that needed an opportunity, I was like, oh my gosh, something clicked. And I thought, okay, what if I could train this group of people to sell credit card processing to their local business owners, their kid's pediatrician and their dentist and their hair salon. And so I went in 2018 and I trained women in 6 different cities to see if people with no background in financial services could be effective at selling it. So, we trained flight attendants and teachers and doctors, people in every different field, and trained them on how to sell. And based on their success, we raised our first round of capital in 2019. Then we
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we raised $1 million. Then we raised our second round last year, and now we're raising our third round. And now we have 1,100 account executives across the country, and we'll have 5,000 in just a couple of years. So we just are growing fast, and we also are helping small business owners because we always say come for the prices and stay for the service, because this is an industry that has terrible customer service.
Well, and I remember one thing you told me that I loved was that people can actually go on a trip and they can do something else and they would still make recurring income. And that was really cool. Want to tell me more about, let the audience know about that?
Sure, yeah. So what happens is if someone joins us and they sell, let's say, credit card processing to their dentist, who they already know, right? Let's say they collect $60 a month on that one account. That's recurring revenue for the life of the account.
Nice.
And so the way it works with our company is we've made it so that no one has to ever crunch a number and they never have to service an account. All an account executive does, they go to the lead and they pitch them on the idea of a payment checkup, which will compare their pricing, service, and technology to what Park Place offers. And then they ask 5 minutes of questions to the business owner or the manager, and then they send that back to our full-time team. And our full-time team puts together a beautiful PowerPoint within 48 hours that they send back to that account executive.
You didn't even have to do your own PowerPoint?
Exactly.
Oh, I like that.
Then the account executive presents it to the manager or the business owner.
Okay.
And if that person says yes to switching to Park Place, they're done. Our full-time team swoops in, takes over, we ship the terminal, we get them through underwriting, and we service the account for the life of the account, and they're free to go sell their next account, but they still split everything with us and get the recurring revenue. So you can really build an empire. Someone will start with one account and then they can build up to 30 accounts and 50 accounts, and they just keep going. It's just as much as they want to hustle. And so some people will do it 6 hours a week and some people will do it 50. It's just up to them and how ambitious they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I don't want to skip over the fact that you said you raised $1 million in capital. And we actually haven't had anyone on the show yet that has gone through a round of funding and raising. So what does it take? What are your top tips for when you're raising funds?
Yes. Well, first of all, we've raised $2.5 million so far. Woohoo! Yeah. And we're raising another 5 now. For me, I was a little bit naive to the process when I started, which might have been a good thing, right? Because I just assume, like most things, I assume it will go well, right? And that's kind of the way I wake up every day. It's going to be a great day. It's going to go well. I will say that I've also have a thick skin, I think, because I was an athlete and because I've been in sales before. I don't get defeated by 1 or 2 no's. I just get myself back up and start again. And I think in fundraising, you have to keep starting over again and again. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that's helped, is not taking the no's too personally, because you have no idea why someone's going to say no. You don't know about their financial situation. You don't know if they just funded something just like yours. You don't know if it's, you remind them of their ex-girlfriend. I mean, you have no idea what the real reason is, right? The reason people tell you they're saying no is probably different than the real reason.
Right.
And so you can't get caught up in what that is, right? So the first time it wasn't that hard. I mean, the one really tricky thing was I thought I was closed with my round, and it was my kids' spring break, and it was the day before. We sent out all the closing documents, and I was so excited. It was my first round. It was my $1 million round, and I was so thrilled and proud of myself. And I was like, I can go on spring break and be completely present, like we were talking about before, not worrying. We arrive at spring break. We were traveling to Colorado, and we arrive in Colorado, and suddenly I get a text from one of the guys who was the lead guy in the round. He goes, I have some questions for you. Are you sure you have what it takes to be an entrepreneur? And
What?
I said, what do you mean?
Right.
And so I called him up, and he said, well, you have a lot of people in your life counting on you, and it just seems like you're so busy, which was code for you have 3 children.
Right.
Now, if a man had 3 children, some guy would probably think, oh, good, the guy has 3 kids, so he's going to really hustle because he has a lot of people counting on him, a lot of people to feed. In my case, it was kind of the opposite. It was like the motherhood penalty. So I remember I got off the call, and my husband was there, and I told him what happened. He goes, just save it. Money's money, just save it. And I was like, I hate this guy. I don't want to save it. He's like, no, you have to save it. Bad advice, bad advice. I spent the next 3 days trying to save this guy. He kept asking me for more and more data and data. He just didn't want to do the deal. Okay,
Yeah.
He was like looking for a reason.
A reason.
Yeah. So I finally realized he was not going to be my person, right? But the worst part about it is I did a rookie error, which I didn't know. So for anyone raising money, you are not supposed to give out the list of people who you've raised money from to all the other people, especially unless they've closed. Okay. So this guy asked me for a list of all the other people. Guess who he sees on that list? His ex-girlfriend from years ago who had already committed to the round. She then backed off the round because he called her and spooked her as well.
Oh, no.
So suddenly I lost a third of the round, which was $300,000. Well, I was going to Texas for a conference 2 weeks later. So I go on LinkedIn and I look for anyone who was an angel investor who I was connected to in Texas. And I saw a woman I'd grown up playing tennis with I hadn't seen in over 20 years, reached out to her and said, let's have lunch. At that lunch, she committed to being part of the round. She also got me 3 other people in Austin, and I closed my round on that trip, and it was all women and people of color.
Wow.
And I was so happy because the guy who pulled out was a white guy, so my round ended up being like 3/4 women and people of color. And from that moment forward, I've always made sure our cap table is half women and people of color. And it's a lot easier to fill your round with just white guys because that's typically who invests. But I think it's up to entrepreneurs to be deliberate about who they take money from. And to be very committed to the idea that you are going to have a diverse cap table.
And let's go a little deeper there. Why is it important to have a diverse board? Would it be your board at that point, or investors?
It's not just my board, it's investors, right? So anyone who has power in your company, whether it's an employee, whether it's a board member or an advisory board member or an investor, all of them are going to have influence on your company. And when you look at, just the economic studies, the diverse companies are the ones that perform better, period. It's not even just a subjective argument, it's an economic argument. So for so many reasons, having a diverse group of people around you will make you better. So at Park Place, we make sure that more than half of our full-time team is people of color. Most of us are women. Our cap table is half women and people of color, and it's just something that's part of the ethos of our company, and it's really important to us. So our account executives are now 80% women, 40% people of color. We are just very, very committed to that as part of our mission.
Do you have any specific stories where being diverse has helped you?
I mean, I think it helps us every day just in the way we think about things. It's, I was just reading an article about the workplace, like the typical office is based on the temperature of a 150-pound white man and his metabolic rate, right? And that's why all these women are freezing in the office. So there's so many little things. It affects everything when you don't have diversity in the room in terms of how you're making decisions. And even whether if you're a venture capitalist, it's who you're investing in. It's all these people that are always like, gosh, I wanted to hire someone diverse for the position, but I didn't know anyone. Well, how did you look for that person? Did you say to all the friends you already know, oh, do you know anyone? That's not going to get you to find them. If you're doing the same thing over and over, you're not going to find a diverse group. You have to look outside of the norms, or you have to change the qualifications. If you're in an industry that's not diverse and you're saying we need 10 years of experience, you're never going to have a diverse team.
Right.
You have to look outside of your industry. You have to change the criteria for what a board member is. There's so many things that need to change, and it starts with everything. It's the things you read. It's what you're exposed to. It's where you're spending your time, all of it. Yeah.
I love that. And it's so true, because they often say that hiring managers hire people that are like them.
Yes.
And if everyone looks the same, then how do you have any kind of new opinions
It's
or
just
new
a cycle.
ideas or
Exactly.
creativity?
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, I think for us also, it's like we're selling to small businesses, and small business owners look like America.
Yes.
Small business owners are a diverse group, and so if the typical salesperson is a white dude, that is going to if we even see it all the time in rates. I mean, the minorities and women are absolutely paying more typically in credit card processing fees, because they have been sold to by a white guy who's giving better rates to his friend down the block.
Wow.
So they are preying on women and people of color in terms of what they're charging. And so we see this all the time. So that's why when we started Park Place, it was like, we're going to have one rate card. We don't negotiate. We give you the best rate from the beginning. So everyone has the same rate. If you have, Terry's Car Wash and I have Sam's Auto Body Shop on the same block, if Rick sells to us, he's saying, I bet I could get Terry to pay 3%, but I bet I could get Sam to pay 3.5%,
Right.
even though it's the same exact product. And we don't do that at Park Place.
I love that.
Yeah.
I saw an article, and it was talking about housing rates and mortgages, and how
Yes.
oftentimes people of color are paying higher
Similar.
mortgages in different neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
They also value the homes differently. So I could see, like, even in different parts of town, someone going into one business owner
Yeah.
and saying, like, well, this is the rate, and then another part, well, this is the rate. I can get you a deal on that.
Yes.
So I love that you guys are thinking about those things.
It's so important, and also it's when you're a small business owner, you have so much to worry about. You don't want to be up at night thinking, could I have negotiated a better rate? Like, just one more thing to have pressure on, and we don't want that for our customers.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thinking about, I don't want to leave your journey yet with raising capital.
Yeah.
Like, what has been one of your lowest points in entrepreneurship?
I mean, it's funny. I think it is the capital raise, right? Like it's still really hard to raise money as a woman. I remember with my last round of capital, which was a $1.5 million round. I met this guy that said he verbally committed, okay, and then he said to me, he kept saying over and over, you're going to be the first woman we've ever invested in, as though that was like a good thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, that doesn't make me respect you more. That makes me respect you less. And he kept saying how he was excited about it because he had daughters. And it's like, you shouldn't need to have daughters to care about women in business or women's equality. And it just makes no sense. And so I eventually called him and said, I don't think this is a fit. And I got the confidence to do that, which is only because it was my second round, and I had all that experience with my first round where I was like, you don't need to take money from anyone.
All money's not good money, like they say.
Exactly. And also, it's the same with a job search. Like, if you go into a job search thinking, I'm also evaluating this opportunity for me, I'm not just worried about whether they like me, or a date, right? We've all had friends who go on dates and all they care about is whether he likes me, and they're not thinking about, is this a good potential partner for me?
Yeah.
And, then you get caught in a bad cycle where you're always the pleaser. And I think that as women, we tend to do that, especially in fundraising as an entrepreneur. It's really easy to get into that, I hope they like me, I hope they like me, as opposed to feeling like you're evaluating it. And ironically, when you go in with confidence, as though you have a choice and you're also evaluating them, it makes you more desirable as a potential investment or a potential partner or a potential, client. That's just how it works. And I think that for me, I've had to learn that the hard way. I would say the other, low points have been, I've had people I've hired who haven't necessarily been the right fit. That's been really difficult. I'm a really sensitive person. I, like a lot of entrepreneurs, want everyone to like me.
Yep.
That's not possible when you're managing people. Everyone's not going to like you. And I think especially as women, it's even harder for us because we're judged more harshly in terms of when we say things, our tone of voice. So I think that's probably one of the more challenging things about running a business. And, I think you're just always worried when you're an entrepreneur. You're always worried about, paying the bills and making sure everything is running well and making sure your employees are happy. And there's just a lot to be concerned about all the time. Last summer, I was at an industry conference and I was asked to speak, and the industry is very insular and it's very old boys club network,
Okay.
whatever, old boys club. And it was like a big deal that I was invited to speak at this industry conference, okay, because it's very clubby. So yeah, exactly. So I arrived at the conference, and the day before it was like for owners of companies. So I was at that, very few women. Next day, I'm speaking on a panel, and I notice I am the only woman speaking the entire day.
Oh,
okay?
wow.
The whole day, people are congratulating me for being the only woman, and I'm thinking, this is pathetic. There's tons of women out there in the audience. You could have probably asked any one of them to speak, and they would be just as strong as many of the speakers I heard that day. Mm-hmm. So when it came time for me to talk, and of course I was on a panel about diversity, equity, and inclusion, because that's
You're
what they
the
put
only
us
one.
on. Yeah. So I did speak up and called out the conference, and I said it's not lost on me that I'm speaking about diversity in a sea full of men, and we need more diversity on the speaking roster.
Yeah.
Then the next week I went on LinkedIn and I showed a picture from the conference, and I wrote about the fact that I was congratulated, but it's nothing to be pat on the be pat on the back for. Like, this is embarrassing for the industry and for the conference. I did not name the conference, but if you dug in, you could probably see what it was. I got a letter from the board of the conference saying that they were so offended that I would call out the conference for diversity and that I will not be asked back again. And I think they expected me to write an apology letter, and instead I wrote back, I will always call you out on it, because if a speaker can't call you out, who can?
Right.
I'm in the position of power as a speaker, and that's why I'm in this industry, to change it. I'm not there to do things how they've always been done. And so I guess that was kind of a low point and a high point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting when you start actually speaking your mind.
Yeah.
And I think that's transferable not just to your experience, but often.
Yes.
Sometimes as women and entrepreneurs, we want to be in these positions where it's like, well, what can we say to still be liked and still be invited? But then when can we actually say what we really feel?
Yes.
And there's always that like pull back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you spoke up, though. I'm glad you said what was on your mind.
Well, it can be painful at the moment. I was on Clubhouse for a while. I decided I was going to go in Clubhouse with a goal, the audio network. And I was going to raise the rest of my last round on Clubhouse, which I did with people I met on Clubhouse. One of them,
That's
thank
pretty
you.
awesome.
And then I got off Clubhouse because it was like a little bit of a toxic boys club environment. And one of the examples is there was a very prominent guy on Clubhouse who would have these pitching rooms. And one night I went in and I pitched, and he raved about my pitch. It was the best pitch of the night, and he was going to give in XYZ amount of dollars. Well, then I kept trying to collect the money, and I never heard back from him. So what did I do? After not hearing back many times from an assistant, from him, I went on Clubhouse into his room again, and I called him out in the room.
Uh-oh.
And he went nuts on me, and then all of his minions in the room told me I was rude for calling him out, and that was disrespectful. And I took it really personally, because some of the people in the room were people I respected, and they were had all ganged up on me because I was doing something I thought was just. Like, here you are all night, every night, listening to this guy talk about all of his investments and how he's having this pitching room, and he doesn't follow through. So I thought he should have a warning label on him, and I guess I gave that to him, but it was not well received. So I speak up.
Well, and the question now would be, so we learned from all of our mistakes and all of our happenings. What would you tell people now? Like, would you handle it differently, or would you do the same?
What I would handle differently was how much I let it affect me. I think I was, again, it's the people pleaser thing where I thought these people, I've been in a lot of rooms with these people on Clubhouse. I thought they were kind of Clubhouse friends.
Like, these are family.
Yeah, your Clubhouse family. Yeah. Very loose term, but so I definitely was, I was super affected by that experience. I backed down. I ended up, I had a couple of his people write me on Instagram telling me that they thought I'd done something wrong. They asked if they could have calls with me the next day to talk about what I'd done wrong. I'd gone on those calls. In hindsight, that was a mistake. I should have been more confident about the fact that I was calling out a bad business practice. Like, someone gives their word, they don't follow through. It's okay to call them out. He'd publicly said he was investing. I publicly said he wasn't investing. I gave him the opportunity to say, "Oh shoot, I missed that. I have so many direct messages. I will get back to you tomorrow."
Yeah.
He could have said that. Instead, he got really defensive, right? So you learn from these things. It wasn't, in hindsight, I probably just wouldn't have gotten involved with him at all, but you learn.
Or do you feel like you would not take his word? Or I'm thinking about advice for other people out there that might go through the same. It's like, is it that you can't really take people's word for face value, or?
No, I think it's, there's a certain type of person who's always going to be like a macho kind of person. I'd seen, in this particular case, I'd seen this person kind of berate other people in the room. It had never happened to me. It's a little bit for whom the bell tolls. If someone is treating other people like that, eventually they're going to come after you, even if you've been spared in the beginning. And I think it was just, you have to take money from people that you believe in, who you think are good people. And I think it was the same lesson as I'd had in my first round, which is you have to be selective about who you take money from, and you have to go into it feeling like you are taking money from people that you value, that if they call you with their opinion, you're not going to be like, oh, I have to listen to this person, because once they're a stakeholder in your company, you're kind of together with them, and you have a connection that lasts throughout the company.
I love that you shared that. I was sitting with a friend recently this weekend, and she actually was in the middle of a round, and I think she just finished not too long ago, but she was just kind of really disappointed, and she was telling me about how now she has to have these conversations with the investors, and some of the people that invested, now they feel like they have such a say in her business.
Yeah.
And I feel like what you just said will really help some people that are in similar positions. Like, you're going to be with these investors for a while.
Yeah.
So make sure you only take money from people that you really believe are good people and that you really want to have a relationship with for the long run.
I'm a big believer that if you go to a great school, you can use that and milk that. And, and I've done that in my life, right? I have on paper, I have a great, pedigree. I was looking for that also with my investors. And I think that that's not necessarily the most important thing. Yeah. I think that's another lesson I've learned is if you're taking money from people who are passionate about what you're doing and they really believe in you, that's more valuable than someone who has a brand name on their firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're at 47 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get into the last part of questions here. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
I hope to be like the Barbara Corcoran of the financial services industry in terms of, mobilizing a lot of people to have become financially independent through Park Place. I'm creating $1 billion company, but the greatest thing about it is that we have a huge social mission, which is to really help thousands of people become financially independent and achieve that. One of the things we're building right now, which I'm super excited about, is a platform where we're connecting all of our account executives. So it's almost like a virtual workplace, so that they're not just getting the benefit of earning money through Park Place, but they're also joining forces as a community and a stickier sales force. And they motivate each other, and they feel like they're part of something that's bigger than just them, because, it can be really lonely to work in silos on your own. And I think we were talking earlier about the fact that by the year 2027, more than half the workforce will be freelance. And so the entire future of work is changing.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that Park Place is going to be at the forefront of that, because we're building this platform where it's going to be like a virtual workplace for everyone who joins us. And that's going to change their experience that they have every day. They'll drop their kids off at school and then log into Park Place and feel like they're part of this digital community where they're also earning their money. So
I love your passion. I love your passion for the people who you're serving. It's not just about the business, but it's about like how the business will impact their lives. And I love that.
yeah, thank you.
Will you take a second? You can look straight into this camera here, but any other tips or final thoughts that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are all in control of our own lives. And so even if you feel stuck today and you feel like you are in a career or a job that is not fulfilling to you, or you feel like you're in a relationship that's not fulfilling, or a parenting style that's not fulfilling, you can change it starting today. It's not, 10 pounds from now, or a promotion from now, or a breakup from now. You can start making those changes today. I'm a big believer in not living life in the past lane and just thinking about what you can do to better your circumstances tomorrow. And that's served me well. I don't live with a lot of regrets. I really feel like the most important thing is waking up every day feeling like you have a whole set of new chances, and every moment is a new opportunity.
Sam, you're amazing. I love it. And how do they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Samantha Ettus, and you can find Park Place Payments at Park Place Payments on Instagram, or you can go to our website at parkplacepayments.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here. It was really great.